Hello friends, I'm Ellie, welcome to Cardboard Design. Today, I will bring you interesting and meaningful fairy tales. I hope you will like it. The first fairy tale. The Beetle. The emperor's horse was shod with gold, a golden shoe on each of its feet. And why was he getting golden shoes? He was a magnificent-looking animal, with slender legs, intelligent eyes, and a mane that hung down his neck like a soft veil of silk. He had carried his master through the smoke and flame of battle and heard the bullets sing and whistle around him. He had kicked and bitten those about him and done his share of the fighting whenever the enemy advanced. He had leaped carrying his master on his back over the enemy's fallen horse and had saved the emperor's red gold crown. Saved the life of the emperor, which was much more valuable than the red gold, and that's why the emperor's horse had golden shoes, a golden shoe on each of his feet. And the beetle came creeping out.
First the big ones,
he said.
and then the little ones, but size isn't the only thing that does it.
Then he stretched out his thin legs.
And what do you want?
Demanded the blacksmith.
Golden shoes?
Replied the beetle.
Why? You must be crazy.
Said the blacksmith.
Do you want golden shoes too?
Golden shoes?
Said the beetle.
I'm just as good as that great creature that is waited on, curry-combed, and brushed, and served with food and drink. Don't I belong to the imperial stable, too?
But why does the horse have golden shoes?
Asked the blacksmith.
Don't you understand that?
Understand? I understand that it is a personal insult to me.
Said the beetle.
It's just done to annoy me, so I'm going out into the world.
Get out of here.
Said the blacksmith.
What a rude person!
Said the beetle as he left the stable. He flew a little way and presently found himself in a beautiful flower garden, all fragrant with roses and lavender.
Isn't it lovely here?
Asked one of the little ladybirds that were flying about, with black spots on their red shield-like wings.
How sweet it smells here, and how beautiful it is.
I'm used to much better things.
Said the beetle.
Do you call this beautiful? Why, there isn't so much as a manure pile here.
Then he went on and got into the shadow of a large gillyflower. A caterpillar was crawling along on it.
How beautiful the world is!
Wow! Said the caterpillar.
The sun is so warm, and everything is so pleasant. And when my time comes and I must die, as people call it, I'll wake up again, and I'll be a butterfly.
What conceit!
Said the beetle.
You fly about like a butterfly? Indeed, I'm from the stable of the emperor. And no one there, not even the emperor's favorite horse, who wears my cast-off golden shoes, has any idea like that. Get wings? Fly. Why? I can fly already.
And then the beetle flew away.
I don't really want to be annoyed, and yet I am annoyed.
Soon afterward, he settled on a large lawn. Here he lay quietly for a while, and then he fell asleep. My goodness! The rain came down in buckets. The noise woke up the beetle, and he wanted to get down into the earth at once, but he couldn't. He tumbled over. Sometimes he was swimming on his stomach, sometimes on his back, and it was out of the question to try to fly. Would he ever escape from there with his life? So he just lay where he was and remained lying there. When the rain had let up a little, and the beetle had blinked the water from his eyes, he saw something gleaming white. It was linen that had been put out there to bleach. He managed to make his way to it and creep into a fold of the damp cloth. Certainly, this place wasn't as comfortable as the warm stable, but there was nothing better. And so he stayed there for a whole day and a whole night, while the rain stayed too. The next morning, he crept out, very much annoyed with the weather. Two frogs were sitting on the linen, their bright eyes shining with pleasure.
What wonderful weather this is.
One of them said,
How refreshing. And this linen holds the water together so perfectly. My hind legs are tickling as if I were going to swim.
I'd like to know
said the other frog.
whether the swallow, who flies so far in her many trips to foreign countries, ever finds a better climate than ours. Such a storm and such a downpour. You really might think you were lying in a wet ditch. Anybody that doesn't enjoy this weather certainly doesn't love his native country.
Have you ever been in the emperor's stable?
Asked the beetle.
The dampness there is both warm and refreshing. That's what I am used to. That's the climate for me. But one can't take it along on a journey. Isn't there a nice hotbed here in the garden, where persons of rank, like me, can find a place to live and make himself at home?
But the frogs either didn't or wouldn't understand him.
I never ask a question twice.
Said the beetle, after he had already asked 3 times without getting any answer. He went on a little farther and bumped against a piece of broken pottery. It certainly shouldn't have been lying there, but since it was, it gave good shelter. Several families of earwigs lived here, and they didn't need very much room, but they liked company. The females were full of the most devoted mother love, and so each one considered her own child the most beautiful and clever of all.
Our son has become engaged,
Said one mother.
the sweet, innocent baby. His greatest ambition is to creep someday into a clergyman's ear. He's such a lovely boy, and being engaged will keep him out of mischief. What joy for a mother! Our son
Said another mother.
had hardly crept from the egg before he got into mischief. He's so full of life and spirits he'll run his horns off. What joy that is for a mother! Isn't that true, Mr. Beetle?
For she had recognized the stranger by his shape.
You're both quite right.
Said the beetle, so they invited him to walk in. That is, to come as far as he could under the broken flower pot.
Now you ought to see my little earwig.
Observed a third mother, and a fourth.
They're such lovely children, and so amusing. They never behave badly, except when they have a stomach ache, but that happens pretty often at their age.
Then each mother spoke of her own youngster, and the youngsters joined in the conversation, and used the little forks in their tails to pull the beetle's mustache.
The little scamps, they're always up to something.
Said the mothers, beaming with maternal love. But the beetle was bored by all this, and so he asked how far it was to the nearest hotbed.
Oh, that's way out in the world, on the other side of the ditch.
Said an earwig.
I hope none of my children ever goes that far. It would be the death of me.
Just the same, I'll try to go that far.
Said the beetle, and then he went off without taking any formal leave, for that's considered the polite thing to do. And by the ditch he met several of his kind, all beetles.
We live here,
They said.
and we're very cozy here, too. May we invite you to step down into this rich soil? The journey must have tired you out.
Indeed it has.
Said the beetle.
I've been lying on linen out in the rain, and cleanliness tires me very much. I also have rheumatism in my wing joints from standing in a draft under a broken flower pot. It's really very relaxing to be among one's own kind again.
Perhaps you come from the hotbed.
Asked the oldest of them.
Oh, I come from a much higher place.
Said the beetle.
I come from the Emperor's stable, where I was born with golden shoes on. I'm traveling on a secret mission. You mustn't ask me any questions, for I won't tell you anything.
And so the beetle stepped down into the rich soil. There sat 3 young lady beetles, and they tittered because they didn't know what to say.
They are not engaged yet.
Said their mother, and then the young lady beetles tittered again, this time from embarrassment.
I have never seen greater beauties even in the Emperor's stables.
Said the traveling beetle.
Now don't you spoil my daughters.
Said the mother.
And please don't speak to them unless you have serious intentions. But of course your intentions are honorable, and so I give you my blessing.
Hurrah! Cried all the other beetles at once, and so the beetle was engaged. First the engagement, then the wedding. There was nothing to wait for. The following day passed pleasantly, and the next was fair enough, but by the 3rd day it was time to think of food for the wife and perhaps for children.
I've let them put something over on me,
He said,
and now the only thing to do is put something over on them in return.
and that he did. Away he went, away all day, and away all night, while his wife was left a widow. The other beetles said that they had taken nothing more than a complete tramp into the family, and now his wife was left a burden on their hands.
Well, then she shall be unmarried again,
Said her mother.
and sit here among my unmarried daughters. Shame on that disgusting rascal who deserted her.
Meanwhile the beetle had been traveling on, and had sailed across the ditch on a cabbage leaf. That morning 2 persons came by, And when they saw the beetle, they picked him up, turned him over, and both looked very learned, especially one of them, a boy.
Allah sees the black beetle in the black stone and in the black mountain.
He said.
Isn't that in the Quran?
Then he translated the beetle's name into Latin and discoursed upon its nature and family history. The older scholar was opposed to carrying him home, saying they had just as good a specimen there. This, the beetle thought, was a very rude thing to say. Consequently, he suddenly flew out of the speaker's hand. As his wings were dry now, he flew a considerable distance and reached a greenhouse, where he found the sash of the glass roof partly open. So, with the greatest of ease, he slipped in and buried himself in the manure.
It's very comfortable here,
He remarked. Soon he fell asleep and dreamed that the emperor's horse had fallen down and that Mr. Beetle had been given its golden shoes, with the promise that he should have 2 more. It was all very charming. And when the beetle woke up, he crept out and looked around him. What splendor there was in the greenhouse! Great palm trees were growing high, and the sun made them look transparent. And beneath them, what a riot of green and blooming flowers, red as fire, yellow as amber, or white as freshly fallen snow.
What magnificent plants! How delicious they'll taste when they're nice and decayed,
said the beetle.
This is a splendid larder. I am sure some of my relatives live here. I'll just see if I can find anyone fit to associate with. I'm proud, and I'm proud of being that way.
So he thought of the dream he had had about the dying horse and the golden shoes he had won. But suddenly a hand seized the beetle and squeezed him and turned him over and over. The gardener's little son and his playmate had come to the greenhouse and, seeing the beetle, had decided to have some fun with him. First, he was wrapped in a vine leaf and then shoved down into a warm trousers pocket. He squirmed and wriggled, but he got a good squeezing from the boy's hand. The boy went rapidly toward the great lake at the bottom of the garden. Here they put the beetle in an old broken wooden shoe, with the top part missing. A little stick was placed upright for a mast, and to this the beetle was bound with a woolen thread. Now he was a skipper and had to sail away. The lake was very large, and to the beetle it seemed a vast ocean. He was so amazed at its size that he fell over on his back and kicked out with all his legs. The wooden shoe sailed away. The current bore it along, but whenever it went too far from shore, one of the boys would roll up his trousers, go in after it, and bring it back. However, just as it sailed merrily out to sea again, the boys were called away, and quite sharply, too, so that they ran away from the lake, leaving the wooden shoe to its fate. It drifted away from the shore, farther and farther out. It was a terrible situation for the beetle. He couldn't fly, for he was bound tightly to the mast. Then a fly paid him a visit.
What beautiful weather we're having,
said the fly.
I'll rest here. I can take a sun bath here. You're certainly having a nice time of it. You don't know what you're talking about,
replied the beetle.
Can't you see I'm tied up? I'm not a prisoner,
said the fly, and promptly flew away.
Well, now I guess I know the world,
the beetle said.
And it's a mean place. I'm the only honest person in it. First, they won't give me my golden shoes, then I have to lie on wet linen and stand in a draft, and as a climax they hitch a wife to me. Then, when I made a quick move out into the world, and found out how people live, and how I ought to live, one of these human puppies comes and ties me up and leaves me to the mercy of the wild ocean, while the emperor's horse prances about proudly in golden shoes. That's what annoys me more than anything else. But you mustn't expect sympathy in this world. My career has been very interesting. But what's the good of that, if nobody knows about it? The world doesn't deserve to know about it, for it should have given me golden shoes when the emperor's horse was shod and I stretched out my feet to be shod, too. If they'd given me golden shoes, I'd have been an honor to the stable. Now the stable has lost me, and the world has lost me. It's all over.
But it wasn't all over yet. Some young girls came rowing up in a boat.
There's an old wooden shoe sailing along over there,
said one of them.
And there's a little animal tied fast in it,
said another. Their boat came quite close to the wooden shoe, and they fished him out of the water. One of the girls took out a tiny pair of scissors and cut the woolen thread without hurting the beetle, and when she stepped on shore, she placed him down on the grass.
Crawl, crawl, fly, fly away if you can.
She said,
Freedom is a precious thing.
and the beetle flew straight through the open window of a large building. And there he sank down, tired and exhausted, in the long, fine, soft mane of the emperor's favorite horse, which was standing in the stable where he and the beetle lived. He clung fast to the mane and sat there a little while until he had collected himself.
Here I am sitting on the emperor's favorite horse. Yes, sitting on him as his rider. But what am I saying? Oh, yes, now it's clear to me. Yes, it's a good idea and quite right. Why did the horse get golden shoes? The blacksmith asked me. Now I know the answer. They were given to the horse on my account.
That put the beetle in good spirits again.
Traveling broadens the mind.
He said. The sun's rays streamed in on him and shone very brightly.
On the whole, the world isn't so bad, after all.
Said the beetle.
But you must know how to take it.
The world was wonderful because the emperor's favorite horse had golden shoes and because the beetle was its rider.
Now I am going down to the other beetles and tell them about all the pleasures I have enjoyed on my trip abroad. And I am going to say that now I'm going to stay at home until the horse has worn out his golden shoes.
The story emphasizes the value of pride and personal dignity. The golden beetle refuses to accept being underestimated and feels a loss of worth when not given golden shoes like the emperor's horse. The beetle leaving its familiar environment to explore the world symbolizes the expansion of knowledge and new experiences in life. The golden beetle undergoes various challenges and difficulties during its journey, from being confined to a small boat to being defeated by harsh weather. This could symbolize the human ability to confront challenges and overcome hardships. Upon being freed, the beetle expresses a sense of freedom and appreciates the value of liberty. The story revolves around themes of freedom and individual freedom rights. The actions of the girls in the boat, liberating the beetle and encouraging it to fly away, highlight the importance of empathy and assisting one's kind in society. Returning home, the beetle realizes the value of its familiar environment and the things it had previously taken for granted, now holding them in higher regard after its journey. In summary, the story of the golden beetle imparts valuable lessons about pride, facing challenges, the importance of freedom, empathy, and appreciating what one has. The second fairy tale. What the old man does is always right. I will tell you a story that was told me when I was a little boy. Every time I thought of this story, it seemed to me more and more charming. For it is with stories as it is with many people, they become better as they grow older. I have no doubt that you have been in the country and seen a very old farmhouse with a thatched roof and mosses and small plants growing wild upon it. There is a stork's nest on the ridge of the gable, for we cannot do without the stork. The walls of the house are sloping, and the windows are low, and only one of the latter is made to open. The baking oven sticks out of the wall like a great knob. An elder tree hangs over the paling, and beneath its branches, at the foot of the paling, is a pool of water in which a few ducks are disporting themselves. There is a yard dog too, who barks at all corners. Just such a farmhouse as this stood in a country lane, and in it dwelt an old couple, a peasant and his wife. Small as their possessions were, they had one article they could not do without, and that was a horse, which contrived to live upon the grass which it found by the side of the high road. The old peasant rode into the town upon this horse, and his neighbors often borrowed it of him, and paid for the loan of it by rendering some service to the old couple. After a time they thought it would be as well to sell the horse, or exchange it for something which might be more useful to them. But what might this something be?
You'll know best, old man,
said the wife.
It is fair day today, so ride into town and get rid of the horse for money or make a good exchange. Whichever you do will be right to me, so ride to the fair.
And she fastened his neckerchief for him, for she could do that better than he could, and she could also tie it very prettily in a double bow. She also smoothed his hat round and round with the palm of her hand, and gave him a kiss. Then he rode away upon the horse that was to be sold or bartered for something else. Yes, the old man knew what he was about. The sun shone with great heat, and not a cloud was to be seen in the sky. The road was very dusty, for a number of people, all going to the fair, were driving, riding, or walking upon it. There was no shelter anywhere from the hot sunshine. Among the rest, a man came trudging along and driving a cow to the fair. The cow was as beautiful a creature as any cow could be,
She gives good milk, I am certain.
said the peasant to himself.
That would be a very good exchange, the cow for the horse. Hello there, you with the cow.
He said.
I tell you what, I dare say a horse is of more value than a cow, but I don't care for that. A cow will be more useful to me, so, if you like, we'll exchange. To be sure I will,
said the man. Accordingly, the exchange was made, and as the matter was settled, the peasant might have turned back, for he had done the business he came to do. But, having made up his mind to go to the fair, he determined to do so, if only to have a look at it. So on he went to the town with his cow. Leading the animal, he strode on sturdily, and, after a short time, overtook a man who was driving a sheep. It was a good fat sheep, with a fine fleece on its back.
I should like to have that fellow.
Said the peasant to himself.
There is plenty of grass for him by our palings, and in the winter we could keep him in the room with us. Perhaps it would be more profitable to have a sheep than a cow. Shall I exchange?
The man with the sheep was quite ready, and the bargain was quickly made. And then our peasant continued his way on the high road with his sheep. Soon after this, he overtook another man, who had come into the road from a field and was carrying a large goose under his arm.
What a heavy creature you have there.
Said the peasant.
It has plenty of feathers and plenty of fat, and would look well tied to a string, or paddling in the water at our place. That would be very useful to my old woman. She could make all sorts of profits out of it. How often she has said, if now we only had a goose. Now here is an opportunity, and if possible, I will get it for her. Shall we exchange? I will give you my sheep for your goose, and thanks into the bargain.
The other had not the least objection, and accordingly the exchange was made, and our peasant became possessor of the goose. By this time he had arrived very near the town. The crowd on the high road had been gradually increasing, and there was quite a rush of men and cattle. The cattle walked on the path and by the palings, and at the turnpike gate they even walked into the toll-keeper's potato field, where one fowl was strutting about with a string tied to its leg, for fear it should take fright at the crowd, and run away and get lost. The tail feathers of the fowl were very short, and it winked with both its eyes, and looked very cunning, as it said, "Cluck, cluck." What were the thoughts of the fowl as it said this I cannot tell you, but directly our good man saw it, he thought,
Why, that's the finest fowl I ever saw in my life. It's finer than our parson's brood hen, upon my word. I should like to have that fowl. Fowls can always pick up a few grains that lie about, and almost keep themselves. I think it would be a good exchange if I could get it for my goose. Shall we exchange?
he asked the toll-keeper.
Exchange?
Repeated the man.
Well, it would not be a bad thing.
And so they made an exchange. The toll-keeper at the turnpike gate kept the goose, and the peasant carried off the fowl. Now he had really done a great deal of business on his way to the fair, and he was hot and tired. He wanted something to eat, and a glass of ale to refresh himself, so he turned his steps to an inn. He was just about to enter when the ostler came out, and they met at the door. The ostler was carrying a sack. "What have you in that sack?" asked the peasant.
Rotten apples.
Answered the ostler.
A whole sack full of them. They will do to feed the pigs with.
Why, that will be terrible waste.
He replied.
I should like to take them home to my old woman. Last year the old apple tree by the grass plot only bore one apple, and we kept it in the cupboard till it was quite withered and rotten. It was always property, my old woman said, and here she would see a great deal of property, a whole sackful. I should like to show them to her.
What will you give me for the sack?
asked the ostler.
What will I give? Well, I will give you my fowl in exchange.
So he gave up the fowl and received the apples, which he carried into the inn parlor. He leaned the sack carefully against the stove, and then went to the table. But the stove was hot, and he had not thought of that. Many guests were present: horse dealers, cattle drovers, and 2 Englishmen. The Englishmen were so rich that their pockets quite bulged out and seemed ready to burst, and they could bet too, as you shall hear. Hiss SS, hiss SS. What could that be by the stove? The apples were beginning to roast.
What is that?
Asked one.
Why, do you know?
Said our peasant. And then he told them the whole story of the horse, which he had exchanged for a cow, and all the rest of it down to the apples.
Well, your old woman will give it you well when you get home.
Said one of the Englishmen.
Won't there be a noise?
What? Give me what?
Said the peasant.
Why, she will kiss me and say, what the old man does is always right.
Let us lay a wager on it.
Said the Englishman.
We'll wager you a ton of coin gold, 100 pounds to the hundredweight.
No, a bushel will be enough.
Replied the peasant.
I can only set a bushel of apples against it, and I'll throw myself and my old woman into the bargain. That will pile up the measure, I fancy.
Done. Taken. And so the bet was made. Then the landlord's coach came to the door, and the 2 Englishmen and the peasant got in, and away they drove, and soon arrived and stopped at the peasant's hut.
Good evening, old woman.
Good evening, old man.
I've made the exchange.
Oh, well, you understand what you're about.
Said the woman. Then she embraced him, and paid no attention to the strangers, nor did she notice the sack.
I got a cow in exchange for the horse.
Thank heaven.
Said she.
Now we shall have plenty of milk and butter and cheese on the table. That was a capital exchange.
Yes, but I changed the cow for a sheep.
Better still.
Cried the wife.
You always think of everything. We have just enough pasture for a sheep. Use milk and cheese, woolen jackets and stockings. The cow could not give all these, and her hair only falls off. How you think of everything.
But I changed away the sheep for a goose.
Then we shall have roast goose to eat this year. You dear old man, you're always thinking of something to please me. This is delightful. We can let the goose walk about with a string tied to her leg, so she will be fatter still before we roast her.
But I gave away the goose for a fowl.
A fowl? Well, that was a good exchange,
replied the woman.
The fowl will lay eggs and hatch them, and we shall have chickens. We shall soon have a poultry yard. Oh, this is just what I was wishing for.
Yes, but I exchanged the fowl for a sack of shriveled apples.
What? I really must give you a kiss for that?
Exclaimed the wife.
My dear good husband, now I'll tell you something. Do you know, almost as soon as you left me this morning, I began to think of what I could give you nice for supper this evening, and then I thought of fried eggs and bacon with sweet herbs. I had eggs and bacon, but I wanted the herbs, so I went over to the schoolmaster's. I knew they had plenty of herbs, but the schoolmistress is very mean, although she can smile so sweetly. I begged her to lend me a handful of herbs. Lend! She exclaimed. I have nothing to lend, nothing at all grows in our garden, not even a shriveled apple. I could not even lend you a shriveled apple, my dear woman. But now I can lend her 10 or a whole sackful, which I'm very glad of. It makes me laugh to think about it.
And then she gave him a hearty kiss.
Well, I like all this.
Said both the Englishmen.
Always going down the hill, and yet always merry. It's worth the money to see it.
So they paid 100 weight of gold to the peasant, who, whatever he did, was not scolded but kissed. Yes, it always pays best when the wife sees and maintains that her husband knows best, and whatever he does is right. That is a story which I heard when I was a child, and now you have heard it too, and know that. What the old man does is always right. This is the end of the story. Do you like the stories I tell? Fairy tales give us valuable lessons about life. Come back tomorrow to hear more interesting fairy tales. Bye bye!